Welcome to Turn Right Machine Works. My name is Keith. Alright, we took a little break since the last time. We had some chores here this Sunday and, you know, chicken cleaning coop and stuff like that. So anyway, we spent our time over there, a couple strokes on the file, and one little band of sanding around on the outside, and we get this to fit in here. Now this was handmade, and this was off a little bit when I made it, and I just took it for granted when we went in there to set it up, and that's what messed me up on there. But stuff happens. Honestly, the smaller one we did here last week, and this wrench here was made closer to being correct on the depth and everything else, and that was done in almost one pass and just a couple strokes of the file. Regardless, we're ready to go ahead and we'll cut our nut. Now before we put the threads on the nut, we've got to create the right thread on the bearing. And as I was talking earlier, I've designed, or not designed, I've followed through with a procedure to leave a large flat on the crown of the thread. So I cut the threads shallow so that I have a slight flat on the top of the thread so that there's virgin material still making contact with the rest of the bore. These bearings come with a couple thousandths press fit for a standard. Usually a bore is a standard size and the bearings are made for a couple thousandths press. And that's the integrity that we don't want to lose on the outside of the bearing. Alright, so this sits to the side for a little bit, and we're going to start off with the bearing here. And I believe everything's pretty well set here. I've got it cleaned up. I'm putting it in. I'm only going to be putting about half threads on the bearing, meaning half the length of the bearing. And I haven't moved it around here yet this morning. And all right, and I like to support my bell center on the end of the bearing. It just gives a little bit. I mean, this is I just don't like it singing, and sometimes they sing if you're hanging them out like that. And also this helps hold it more uniform. All right, now we've got to set up our thread, and of course with our bell center and everything else, we're gonna have to slide it on over that way there. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen this up. Now I want to slide it over here. Where we're going to be in a position here. I like that. Alright. Just going to lightly tighten this a little bit so I can kick out the tool. I'm just putting in my my parting tool here so that I can come up against the flat side of my jaw. I'm going to actually have to move it in a little bit because my bottom was catching here. And if we need to, I'm going to run the tailstock out a little bit so I can still get in here. We'll see how close we are. Okay, we can make it. Alright, I like 12 threads per inch. And we're there. DA. We're going to bring it in here. We're going to be cutting it. I like that speed right there. Alright, I like to bring this, I bring this in to where I'm comfortable to pull out, because I don't have an automatic stop on this thread stop. I like there, pull the backlash out, come in, and I touch on my bearing. Alright, I'm going to bring you in closer so we can get a good look at this as I'm going. Okay, I'm all set up. I have my dashboard gauge, and you've seen me thread before, so I'm going to give you kind of a close-up on the passes here at the bit there. So I'm going to zoom you in as soon as I get rotating. Now 12 threads per inch, the double depth on that is 108. And we're probably going to be bringing it in, and our finished depth on per side is going to be somewhere around 40. I think looks really good. I give a visual on it when I get down that close. All right, so our first pass is just basically going to make sure that we got 12 threads per inch, and that's just a touch and skim, and we'll go from there. All right, that looks good for 12. We will stop it and double check it. And that's right on the money. Okay. Okay, we're taking 10 per pass here. Now I'm videoing right now, but normally I'd hold a paintbrush over the chips to keep them down on the bed instead of spraying on my hand and on the floor. All right, we bring her back in here. Oh, my light's doing a little funny thing here. All right, we advance it another 10. Okay, we're just going to leave the light there. It can't fall down any farther. All right, another 10. This is a total of 30 so far per side on it after this cut here. Okay, now we're going to knock it down to a 5. We're looking at that flat that's on the top there, all right, and that's about a 1/16 of an inch still. We like to get it down to about 20 thousandths or so. Okay, let's take a look here. All right, I like the top of that flat right there, and it's about 20 thousandths on it. Now this is just a spring cut. This is just going to make a little bit of a gloss to the threads. also known as a spring cut. All right, we're going to go ahead and pull this out of the lathe here, and we're going to stick the nut in and set up on that. Okay, we need to open this up so we can chuck on our nut. Okay, now I'm not going to run this out here and try to hold this steady and everything else here. I have a nice good back there. The bore I'm working is actually going to be smaller than the bore on my chuck, so I want this back in here. But there's a lot of chuck hanging out here, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull off okay, we're going to pull off these outside jaws, and I believe I got that nut sitting there where we're going to be in on the inner jaws. And sometimes it just really lets you have the freedom to get nice and close in here. And not having the chuck jaws flying out in front of your face here. I clean very well between my jaws and these points when I put them back together. So I don't take it lightly about pulling these on and off. I make sure that they are clean. My jaws are numbered, so I put the right one back on the same one. Here shortly I'm going to be doing a video on re-grinding this, but I'm going to pull the chuck completely apart and clean the scroll and everything else inside, just so that I make the once through on it, just like I did when I first got it set up on this lathe here back in 94. I had this lathe. Okay, now you can see how nice and accessible it is, and I was able to go ahead, even though this is 3 jaw, there's 4 here. I'm able to get part of that circle so that it holds that nut. And let's see, let's go ahead and we're going to spin it. The outside is running true as the 3 jaw is, and the sanded torch cut, and the inside here will be running to match it here soon. The part's going to stay in here until it's done. It'll be tested in here with the threads to fit the bearing. So when we pull it out of here, we know it's going to be a working nut, and it'll be the guide to thread the other bearing to follow this one down the road. All right, we're just making sure that our chuck here is snug. All right, we're going to go ahead, our compound, we're going to try to leave this exactly where it's at. It's square, so what we're going to do is we're going to set a boring bar in here now. Actually, we're going to go ahead and move this. We need to move it in. That bell center was just making us throw it off so much to the rear. All right, now this time we're going to go ahead and slide our tailstock in. Let me move the camera here for you. This center is nice and flat here, and we're using this nice flat surface right here, and we're going to go ahead and locate our block square like that real quick. All right, now we're good to go. Move this back out of the way. Now we got our boring bar here. All right, and we can add some speed to this now for just machining the bore here. All right, let's get a size on that. Now the bearing is 2 3/4, and 12 threads is like 108. So That makes about 1 inch 640 would be right close to the true diameter, but we know we cut it shallow by 15 thousandths, so we could probably make this bore at 2,660, 65, somewhere around in there would be a good guess. All right, and we're at 2,460, so we got about 100 thousandths per side to take out of here. Okay, I'm setting my dial 0. There's 50 thousandths. That feed I was running is somewhere around 12. Okay, there's like 558. We're gonna go ahead and take half of what we need, about 25. A little nicer cut, not so much chip load on it. Alright, probably brush it with a little coolant here on the next, or oil on the next one here. Alright, there's 2,600, so we got about another 30 or so per side. We'll take 25 of it. We're going to give it just a little bit of oil here. You know, now that makes a much glossier cut, and the sulfur-based cutting oil does help. Now I just made 2-3 cuts right there, and then put on the sulfur-based cutting oil, and I have no problem ever getting a cracked insert or anything else like that. So it's not like kind of like splashing the coolant on it after it's been cherry red or anything. All right, I'm about 660 right there. I'm just going to take a couple thousandths, just so I have 65 and a light cut on here. All right, I like that. Okay, we're all done with the boring, and now that I hadn't changed it yet, but okay, hang on, Shanann wants to come in. Meow. Huh? How you doing? Hmm? You wanna come in? All right. All right, Shanann's happy to see me here. All right, this is a regular insert that I use on my OD trimming. I hold in this holder here. It's a Sanovic threading insert, and I machined this clearance on this bar here, so it's halfway through here if I run it in one of my cylindrical holders, and I float that on there with some silver solder. And this side over here broke on me on that last nut, and I had to stop in the middle of it and float a new one on here, and then I finished that nut with that thread there. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, and I'm going to get a really nice camera angle in here so that we can watch this cut into bore. Alright, we're set up here. We have our boring bar with an insert in here. One other thing I needed to do was get my indicator on my compound here so I know where I'm at. Alright, now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our insert to chamfer the inside and outside of our diameters there so that we have a nice dressed off lead in at edge there. I've already put the speed in here. I'm going to turn. I'm in the direction and I'm already in the threading mode, but I'm going to be doing this by feeding in by hand. And let's go ahead and zoom into our bit now. Okay, I like that. I'm going to come on the inside in here. I'm just kind of eyeballing the chip that's coming off of there. Okay, that chip width is really what I'm going to go for. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing as I do normally. Is I'm going to set where I want to be able to pull out, which is right there on my compound. And I'm pulling back and getting all my backlash out of here. I'm going to feed this out. Now we're going to touch off and we're going to create a 0 on the depth. I was just double checking. I forget if I was on 0 or not. I think we are on 0. It looks like it's cutting nice. Alright. I'm going to set 0 on my dial right there. Okay. Right there's my starting point that I'll be starting. So I'll set my travel dial at 0. I'm just talking out loud. Alright. We're going to engage it when it comes to our number here. So we can check the thread pitch with a thread gauge here, and we're doing good. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this in until we have a nut fit. Now we know by what we calculated out about 45 thousandths will be where we'll be finishing off. Okay, now I've got my gauge on here so I can come in on the inside. I got it feeding in the reverse, as you can see, and I have it coming and cutting on the way out. Now I'm going to be adding in some oil on this because I like to get this bit to last as long as possible. Alright, and we come in for our second 20. Okay, this will be 30 here. Just adding a little oil. There's our number. Okay, that's 35. Now we still may have to come in more than what we have here because we're guessing on the ID there. This is 40 now. And our threads are going to be pretty much to a point on this one here because we're calculating out the difference so that we have the maximum thread grabbing in the root of the other one. So alright, this will be 45 right here. just because I don't think I've ever had one that wasn't like 5 over or whatever. All right, we'll come in for a spring cut now. All right, let's back her off. And we'll take our bearing. And let me blow that out. I got a little bit in here. I saw a couple chips hanging out in there. Okay, it's starting about a half a thread, but we're real close. Okay. We're just going 5 at a time. We're gonna give it some more juice here. Okay, and then we're gonna give it another spring cut. All right, we're gonna test it again. A little bit more. Another 5. And a spring cut here. I'm gonna put a little fluid on it this time for the spring cut even. All right. And this time we learn to spray it with air before it stops. Oh, we need a little bit more room here. Okay. Okay, we're getting close. And these are pretty pointy on the threads there, meaning that they're full threads here. All right, another 5. And another spring. Probably going to be another 5. And actually it's figuring out to be almost the 108 double depth here that the chart looks for. And a spring cut. Okay, I got a good feeling about this time here. All right, it's it's going in. I cranked in almost a 1/4 inch or so, so I'm just going to take a couple spring cuts here. This one here, I actually took 2. And this one here, I'm just going to oil up and not advance my cutter at all. Okay, that's the fit we want. Because when you go to pull one of these bearings out, you're going to have marine growth and everything else on there. I mean, the guys wire wheel them and stuff like that, and they put a little lubrication on them so that they'll go. But that will spin all the way up and down on that bearing. All right, let's pull this out of the lathe. All right, we got the nut out of the lathe there and our bearing, and nice good fit on there. You want it just slightly loose, and the main thing was we got the nice sharp female threads on the nut, so that it reaches right down and takes every bit of advantage of the root of this bearing, because we left the OD, or the crown of the thread, flat so that the integrity of the bearing would fit. And that's what the adjustment is in threading the bearing. And you want a good fit on your bearing. You want to maintain the integrity of the outside. So until next time, get her done.